former probation officer convicted in a murder case will learn her fate for a second time in court today.
Now, this is a complicated case the WCCO has been following from the very start. We want to check in now with our Barrett Leone, who's in the newsroom to catch us up on exactly what is happening today. Barrett?
Yeah, well, you might be familiar with this high-profile murder case. Elsa Segura, a former probation officer, was sentenced to life without parole for her role in the death of a Minneapolis real estate agent more than 3 years ago. And according to court documents, a plea deal has been met in the retrial. Segura was found guilty of premeditated first-degree murder and attempted first-degree murder in Monique Baugh's death. The Minnesota Supreme Court reversed those convictions of Segura in January. They say prosecutors failed to provide sufficient evidence and gave incorrect instructions to the jury about determining her criminal liability. The court ruled Segura was still liable for kidnapping and aiding and abetting in the case. She's expected to plead guilty today and will be sentenced shortly afterward. Now, we do expect to hear from Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty following Segura's plea and sentencing today. That's happening later this morning. Of course, WCCO will be there, so stay close by for updates.
Our Barrett Leone live in the newsroom. Barrett, thank you.
So the 2020 unrest that followed the death of George Floyd left the Minneapolis 3rd Precinct offices in complete disarray. Well, now city leaders are trying to reimagine the abandoned site and give it a brighter future. The newly formed 3,000 Minnehaha Coalition will be holding a meeting today. So if you live or work in that area, they want to hear from you. There are already several ideas out there being floated. Mayor's office hopes to use the space to house voting machines. Now, the coalition, which doesn't have any authority over the project, says that the mayor's office has not gotten input from the community for that plan. So at 9:30, they will meet at the location of the former 3rd Precinct to discuss potential ideas for the community that they might have for that space.
A developing story we are following this morning. The top cop is out at Metro Transit. The Metropolitan Council says Ernest Morales is no longer an employee. He went on administrative leave in August following several complaints of creating a hostile work environment. He was hired in early January of last year, 2023, after spending most of his law enforcement career in New York.
The Lino Lake City Council passed a vote to censure one of its members. Chris Lydon came under fire for seeming to applaud an anti-Muslim email. This comes after the council voted down the opportunity to build a mosque in the area. Last night's vote passed 3-1.
To election coverage now. A handful of local Teamsters in Minnesota and other Midwestern states broke ranks with the national union to support the Democratic ticket. Teamsters Joint Council 32, which represents Minnesota, Iowa, North and South Dakota, along with Wisconsin, signed a letter endorsing Kamala Harris for president. The endorsement came shortly after the International Brotherhood of Teamsters declined to make an endorsement in the presidential race. Now, voters appear split over who should be the next president. The newest Minnesota Star Tribune Minnesota Public Radio poll shows Vice President Harris leading former President Donald Trump 48 to 43% in the state, factoring in the margin of error, and it could be an even tighter race. Remember, Election Day. It is now just more than 6 weeks away.
Today, the St. Paul City Council is holding their annual listening session to discuss the mayor's budget for next year. They want to get residents' perspectives on that proposed budget. City Council will vote to set it in December. Now, you can get a chance to come to the El Rio Vista Community Center today to give your thoughts on how your tax dollars should be spent. That meeting is at 5:30. It'll also be live streamed on the city's YouTube channel.